Hello, I'm Candy and welcome to this episode of the Backstage Pass. Today I talk about something that surrounds us all the time, music. Music is incredibly powerful. It creates emotion, it brings us together, and it is used in nearly all of the events we go through in life. DJ artist Ross Smith talks about music and everything that it brings. It's thought-provoking, it's deeply intelligent, and it will without a doubt cause you to reflect. My one question to you is, what does music mean to you? Let's go. I'm so excited to have you in the studio today, Ross. It's an absolute pleasure. And may I just say before we get started, my new cue cards. I used to have a book and I was like losing my place. And for anyone who's watching can obviously see.
Very nice.
I saw it from the It's So Wrong, It's Right podcast with Olivia from Love Island.
Okay.
And she was there flashing the cards up and I was like, oh, that's a bit good. So I'm going to go with that. I'm
it.
already feeling it. I'm feeling more professional.
I feel like I'm on a show. I know I'm on a show, but I feel like I'm going on catchphrase or something. It's good. I'm even more excited now. The pressure's on.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna calm it down. Cool. Although I am asking a pretty loaded first question. So, why music? What drew you to the industry?
I think from my perspective, it's music's always been a consistent in my life. It's something I've found a great deal of sanctuary in. I have had some incredible experiences in terms of experiencing other artists, and I think that's where you really get that drive and inspiration from. I remember when I grew up, it was the thing that I always was attached to the most. So I remember when I was at, my grandparents, I'd be there listening to, Christ, the albums I used to listen to was Prodigy. This was like 11 years old, right? So, I was probably 11 and I was sat in my granddad and nan's sitting room and I was listening to Jilted Generation. And I think that the onus of becoming an artist and a DJ and what I do in the industry really came as a precursor from there, because I remember sat at his stack, like the Sony stack, and I was playing with the equalizer and sort of doing that now in production side of things. You're tweaking things and making things and adjusting sounds.
Yeah.
And it's kind of strange. You see the formative nature of things happening so many years back when you reflect. But yeah, I remember just going out and different events. I think that's what really spurred it on, and I just found this connection with it. I'd be on the dance floor listening to other artists, and I'd hear songs, and I would just be took away from it, from whatever I was going through. And I think that was what really spurred the beginning of the journey to where I've got to now and where I'm aspiring to get to. I've had a great life and I've got a great life. And it's just that one consistent out of everything I've ever had in my life. It's just that one thing that stuck above everything else. Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, I don't think I even thought about it. I think it just happened. My desire to get into this just became something that I didn't even think about. And I'm an overthinker. I overthink everything.
I can be like that.
Yeah. It's a painful head case sometimes, painful headspace. Sorry to really sort of phrase that. It's frustrating, but equally with music, I've never had to really overthink it. I've never had to think it. It's just been something I've allowed myself to enjoy and embrace and celebrate. And I think that's really why I'm so grateful to be on the show today, because I've long wanted to talk about what it's meant for me, but where I also see its strength in society and why I think it's so important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say if someone said to me, how did it happen? I say, I just kind of fell into it. It just happened. And then I'm still in it. And that's the sort of the thing for me that sort of blows my mind with it, is that it has its challenges. It has a great deal of hard work and a great deal of sacrifice, but it's the one thing I've willingly accepted a sacrifice of, or willingly sacrifice for, because it just adds so much more to my life, and I hope it does the same for others. I believe it does.
Yeah. I mean, I love what you said about how when you're at these events, it's like it doesn't matter what you're going through. You can just be there, and you're just in your element. You can let go of whatever it is you're feeling at that time, or embrace it with the music. I mean, I've written as my second question, would you say that music feels like therapy? Like, maybe we've already answered that one, but yeah.
Wholly, I would say that it's an incredibly cathartic experience. Be I performing on a night or attending a night, there's absolutely something otherworldly, I would say, about it.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's almost haunting to a degree, because one of the things I've always found a challenge in my life is presence. So to be truly present is to be with yourself and to accept yourself in your truest form, as they say. And on a dance floor, sharing that experience with other people, it becomes it's something I learned a little while back, was about you're created in your chaos. So all the madness of the world, and you're on a dance floor and it's loud music, it's flashy lights, and there are people around you, they're moving erratically, but there's this ultimate peace in amongst it, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
It's surreal. You know, once you've experienced that, and once you've connected with that, you know, on whatever level, be it as an artist, be it as someone who's out to listen to music as a consumer.
Yeah.
You know, I just find that absolutely fascinating, that in amongst all of your, you know, in amongst all of this that's going on around you, there's this element of serenity. And then, of course, there's the euphoria that comes with it as well, the sheer connection.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear a song that just takes you to that other place. And I would absolutely say it's a wholly otherworldly experience.
Yeah.
And I think from a therapeutic perspective, I think it has a great deal of value in society. You know, it's sometimes very difficult to just sit with oneself in silence, and I think, you know, music is a great, you know, a great go-between, as it were. So if you do have challenges in the world, you know, and you have things as we all do, and you need some time to process, or, you know, and you're not quite finding comfortable sat there in silence, I think music offers a great deal of value in that situation.
Yeah, I've just been reminded of something, completely pushed it to the back of my mind, but my nan, who sadly passed a couple of years ago, died on the same day that I was due to go to a drum and bass rave, and my mum was like, "Oh, maybe don't go." And I thought, I'm gonna go. And I remember dancing on the dance floor, and I had some moments where I was going, "Oh, Nan," but it was like almost using the music and how I felt, and it was complementing it, and it was almost like I was able to dance and be in my zone to almost find my peace with what was happening. I mean, she was very old, we knew it was coming, but still, you know, you're filled with sadness. But instead of sitting at home, and I think I would have just cried and had a couple of drinks and just been like, you know, this is really sad, and it was really sad, but I went to an event and I could feel the emotions, but just be with people, and like you're saying, finding your peace in the chaos is exactly what it was. Yeah.
And I think that's a great example of it. I really appreciate sharing that as well, actually, because I would say that I don't think you're alone in that situation.
No.
I think that, you know, I watched the program a little while back. I think it was This Is England or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
You know, real Channel 4 series, I believe it was. If I've got this right, if I've got my history correct, this is around the Northern Soul time. So you've got these guys who are working hard in factories, men and women, and they are working hard. They're not earning a particularly great amount of money, but they have this money, and that's what they put all their money into. They go to these events the weekend because they just dance off all the chaos of their week. And I would dare say that, you know, there is a huge amount of therapeutic value in going to events, in being with your people. And, you know, something I wanted to, you know, really talk about was when you look at the history of our existence, and you go back to the times of us being in tribes, and, you know, the hunter-gatherer sort of phases, you know, you had your tribe, and it was set up in a certain way. You'd have your tribe's people, you'd have the villagers, they'd be tending to the day, they'd be looking after the young. You'd have your huntsmen, they would go out and find food. They'd bring it all back. You had your shamans who would provide the medicines for the village and keep everyone healthy. And then you had, a member of the tribe who would lead everyone in song and dance. And I've always loved that, because I don't think we've changed much.
No, we haven't, not really.
We're still that structure. We still have everyone who plays their part. And when I look at society where it's become quite polarized and quite individualistic, I still maintain there's a space for that community aspect.
There is, yeah. And music, I think, is that link. There's so many different genres out there. I know that we love a lot of the same genres, and your DJ style is mostly trance. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah.
And so you get, but the people that come to the events, they're from all walks of life, but then we all come together to share the same value, that we love music.
And that resonates back with the tribal element.
It does.
Because that was a celebration of existence, of survival, because we've gone out and we've done our work. We've had a really hard day and we've survived. We're all here. We're all safe. We're all secure. We're around the fire. And now we can celebrate. And I still see that resonance with the past as with the present. And again, it's still quite a chaotic thing. There's fire kicking off. There's people dancing. There's chanting. There's, a lot of vocalization, a lot of percussion, a lot of drums, around that tribe. But then it's the same thing, because the leading sound in a nightclub is that deep bass, that kick and that pounding noise. And when I was thinking about the show and what I wanted to talk about, and what we ideas and things of it, it's something I've had sat in my head for years and years, and just wanted to talk about it, because I always thought we're still the same as we always were. It's just that life's gone on, things have changed, and it's just a different style that we live in now.
Yeah, more technology and all of that, but we have this need to belong, and the community, sense of community. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is to really feel like there is a sense of community across the board, the umbrella of the arts, and it's bringing everybody together. And music, I mean, maybe that's, I love raving. We all know that. But it's not just that I love raving because it's a night out. It is what the music brings to me. And I do feel it on a really, really deep level. But I do love what you're saying about how it's connecting us from our past to our present and into our future. I think that that's really amazing. And it took me on a journey through all the almost events that have happened throughout my life, and how music has been a big part of those memories throughout it. So if anybody's listening, I'm sure they're having that same impact of, linking music to memories. And music is associated with every special thing that happens in our lives, from being born. I remember giving birth to my son Jack to music. I think he was born to Eye of the Tiger. It's pretty good, isn't it?
It's a pretty
good one, yeah. And then it was, but getting married, there's music, and holidays, there's music, and obviously end of life, there's music, but there's always music. There's people coming together, and there's music.
And you just said about the sort of the end of life element. I think that is wholly interesting. You bring that up, because it's that one of the biggest drivers of emotion, I would say. If I think back to, to not to bring it too down, but if I think back to a funeral, music can be the thing that completely tips you over the edge. You're trying to be that figure of strength for everyone else, as you try to be, as we all try to be. And sometimes it's the music that just tips you over the edge. You
just feel the tears coming up.
I'm teetering here. I'm struggling. And it sometimes could be the thing that tips you over the edge, because it resonates with emotion. It's all comes from emotion, as far as I'm concerned. The connection with music, it must do. I'm sure many people have proven that. And this is not, that's not my specific idea. I just know that whenever I'm working with music, I'm creating music, developing music, trialing new music, it's the way in which I feel about it. So for argument's sake, creating a set. So, if I'm deciding upon roughly the sort of way I want to take a set, I'll get a packet of tracks together. And, I will want to make sure that, the energy is there, the drive is there, but equally that the listener will connect with those tracks as well too. So I was driving here this morning, and I was really thinking about the sort of surface level connection you can have with music, but then there are those other tracks that really connect with you on a deeper level. And I was just thinking to myself, I've been doing this for many, many years, and I think to myself, well, how many tracks have I got? And I was just sort of trying to sort of run through the numbers, and I couldn't think. And I just said, well, round number, let's say 3,000 or 4,000 over the years that I've done this.
Gosh.
But then you then look at it and you think, well, how many of those would I dare say have I've got a surface connection to, but equally a deeper connection? So I love these tracks, but this one I just, and I'm sure, because everyone says, what's your favourite track? And I've had this question, I struggle with it. It's like, I can't really, I'd have to give a list of several tracks that I've felt a connection to on a much more personal level. I'm not sure if that's something you've ever experienced, but I'm sure you have, and I'm sure many people have. But
I was thinking back to, I had this image in my mind. I can't remember how old I was, but I had a ghetto blaster and I was playing no, and I was taken right back there, and I remember playing it on repeat in my bedroom, and I was dancing like a crazy thing. And whenever if I was to hear it now, I would just jump around, and I'd say that's a deep connection, but to a memory.
Yes.
And going back to memories and music, that impact that it has, I have breakup things, songs for a breakup. There's been songs when the songs that you play at your wedding is like, it can be like the first song you heard, or a song but it's those real deep connections to songs, and it's usually a memory. And when you hear them on a night out, or a remix of it or something, it just takes you back to that memory. It's incredible.
It's wonderful because you hear people like expressing so loudly like this. But I'm not going to do it on this show. I'm not going to do it. No. But they scream and they yell and oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
They obviously are a lot louder than I'm going to definitely not do on this show. But you can just tell that person's in a complete moment of pleasure. Like you just said that you've heard a song that you resonate with, you remember it from the past. And again, it's that whole thing of connection again. It brings it from the past back to your present. And this is what I was saying to you earlier on, is that the base of presence with music, I've found has been something I've found very, very therapeutic in my life. Because as I said, something I struggle with is presence and staying within a moment. And because I've had to realise that, I've had to then do a lot of work on that, and I still continue to. But music has been almost like that northern star, that guiding light to keep me in line and keep me focused. All I ever hope is that other people experience that as well too. That's all I've ever hoped, is that it's that if it's helped me in the way it's helped me, that's what I hope it does for others. I sincerely hope it does help them in their journeys.
Definitely.
Because life is difficult. Life is very difficult.
It is.
It will throw things at you never imagined. And I've always questioned my sort of continuity with things, and have I committed hard enough? Have I done enough? And and you still question yourself on those things. And I think that's just naturally part of working in a creative environment, because could I do better? And I'm sure with your work, could I have done a different pose? I'm not pirouetting. I loved that.
I
said you're very handsy. I'm not pirouetting.
Do you know what? That was a pretty nice pose, actually.
Well, I mean, you're an expert in this, so I'm going to say it as a compliment. But I'm going to blush now. Sorry.
No.
I think the thing I look at is that it's been a consistent in my life, and it's the one thing that I've felt that even in spite of my questioning of myself, have I done enough? Do I do enough? It's always been something that even if I've not been sure I've done enough, I've aspired to do more, and I've done more with it. And ultimately, we're always told, if you live in the past, you're depressed. If you live in the future, you're living in anxiety. Presence has been critical for me. So because it's been such a critical element of my survivability and my adaptation, music was, and it always has been, the thing to keep me, in that place, to stop myself, moving along that depressive, anxious spectrum. And again, that's why I'm so grateful to be on the show, because ultimately I still believe that this is where a very large part of therapeutic applications could be applied to add to people's, deliverance through trauma, through difficult experiences in life, but equally also as almost like a way of orienteering themselves.
Yeah.
So, you know, to flag post that position you're at in, like, I'm present, I'm here, and I'm staying here. Doesn't mean I'm
Yeah.
not going to keep working hard to my future, but in terms of my mental position, I stay present. I'm here, and this is where I stay to keep myself from going down those other routes, as it were.
Yeah. It's difficult to be present sometimes, though, isn't it? Because when you're, you know, especially if you're creative, you're thinking about your last performance or your last gig, and then you're trying to think about the future and what you want. And when you're creative, you're very driven. You are thinking about the future. But it is important to go, this is what I want, and I want many things for my future. I want to put a stamp on it. But sometimes you do just have to go, stop, breathe, listen to some music, and literally just bring yourself back. And I find meditation can be really, really good for that. I actually listen to a guided one with music. If I was just to do it with my own thoughts, I think I would be going round and round in circles, but I use music as the anchor, as the flag to keep myself central. So it's really interesting that you said that.
Do you listen to binaural beats?
Yes.
I love them.
Yes.
You know, I've really, the whole 4-3-2, the frequency thing.
Yeah.
So again, when I start to work more towards production, I really started to understand about frequencies and about, about this, music is made into a space. And it was, then you start getting a different perspective on it, and it really helps you to adjust things and make things and design things.
Absolutely.
And I found it really fascinating when I deep dived into binaural beats, because it's targeting a certain position in the spectrum of sound, the 20 to 20,000 hertz thing, isn't it, from our range of hearing. And just the sheer healing nature of that. I mean, for argument's sake, I would sit there, eyes closed, listening to a piece of binaural beats, and it would become almost like a hallucinogenic experience without any kind of hallucinogenics consumed.
I've never done that, but
no,
I can imagine.
Neither have I.
We start trying to imagine ourselves in that state.
I can only but reference what I've understood how it would be if I'd ever done them. So having sat there, and one of the sort of the guidances was to sit there very quietly, just peaceful room, and just meditate as you would meditate.
Yeah.
Go into it very, very blankly. Don't expect anything, and just let whatever comes. Much like when you're
like free association, isn't it? Yeah.
And what I found so fascinating was that it created these patterns and these visions, and it was surreal. I mean, people talk about DMT and they talk about ayahuasca, and I can only presume it's that sort of experience.
Yeah, I can imagine
without
that.
those products. So I found it really interesting, but I frequently use that, and it's really interesting to hear that you do that as well. It's something I never saw myself doing it years ago, but as life developed and things happened, you start seeking ways and means to maintain, as we said, about presence.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was at one point going, well, what the hell do I do? I'm really struggling here. And I went, well, clearly it's got to be music, and it's like, obviously this is me going, duh, Ross, like, think about it. What do you like? Music. Oh, okay. You go, all right, I'll give it a try, and you sort of belligerent with yourself, but then you give it a go. And lo and behold, I found something that really helped. And again, this is what further, facilitates my belief around the power of music, because you have to try and understand, you have to experience something to really be able to get a context of it as actually, does this do anything? Does it actually add any value? And I found it immensely adding in terms of value.
Definitely.
It really was. And I still go back to it. And I think meditation is a really powerful approach for people, even without music. I think it's something, as I've got older, that I found real value in, and something I never imagined years ago that I'd get into it. It's like, yeah, it works. But the binaural beats thing, it's like meditation plus 5 or 6. It's just something else, it's different
element.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking just then, when you go into, I'll give ballet as an example. When you go into your ballet studio, you put your hand on the bar, and it's all about finding your center, finding your core. And I realized that that's kind of how you need to think of things in life, is that, things can be chaos before and after that moment, but finding that moment. And it was like you would put your hand on the bar, the music would start, and everything would make sense. And it was finding your center, but not just finding your center, finding your center. Honestly, like from all the way through you, from head to toe, just feeling where you are in that present moment. And I think that people can apply that in their dance classes or wherever they are. It's like you standing or lying down or sitting, but having that opportunity to just just take a moment. But you can also find those moments on the dance floor. And that I have found many times. I remember one trance rave, I can't remember the name, Trance Sanctuary, I want to say.
Yeah.
So shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one particular euphoric track, and my husband was like, he was trying to talk to me and he went, oh, sorry, you're in the zone. I'm just going to leave you there. And I was I was like, my arms were up, and I was just like, I was just literally in that moment that I was just talking about, that reference to the ballet bar, in that I was just in a real central state. It felt really, really grounding and really amazing, but also uplifting and euphoric at the same time. It's a funny thing, trance, because I can find the grounding and the complete euphoria at the same time. And I think that's the base. Is that the base is the grounding?
Yeah, I think you're going to have a pattern of consistency throughout, you know, from the rhythmic perspective. You know, it will be moving, but it will be in time, and it will be, you know, in key, as it were.
Yeah, so keeping that
rhythm,
steady,
that flow. But then it's then the layers on top. So you've got your pads, atmospheres, you've got, you know, ARPs, you've got different. What I always used to like about it is trying to get quite scientific with it, is to try and really get into the psyche of people, because that's what you want to do. You want to connect.
Yeah.
And equally, I find a cascade of different sounds, different rhythmic patterns, and just different elements keys into people's psyches. And I that's why I really love people who are experimental, who really push the boundary. And certainly the people who really dig and deep dive for sounds too, just different ways of keying into the psyche, because ultimately, yes, you want to drive that euphoria, you want to drive the floor, and you know, to achieve that, to really, there's an immense amount of value in that. When, from a performance perspective, when I'm seeing someone, you know, you're on the dance floor, I'm playing, if I see someone in the state you would achieve there, it's immensely connecting and immensely rewarding. You know, it's not a virtuous, you know, experience. There's a very real human connection there, because you've relayed something and someone's relayed back. It's a call and response.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you just how much that means, seeing someone just fully enveloped in sound.
Oh,
it's incredible, because again, knowing how I feel about music and seeing, if I was to look at my sort of self and think, how do I appear when that happens? You just know what element of pleasure you're in there and what state of euphoric, you know, moment you are. And you just know when you look over at someone, like, I know where they are. So exactly like your husband did, he went, yeah, you're good. She's in a good place, you know, and you do.
Get me with that.
And it's like, but that for me is something that I really resonate with what you said about the ballet bar. And I think that in retrospect of when I'm approaching to go on stage and perform a set myself, I find I come across with this. It's a very strange. It's almost like the volume in the room's turned down, and I've never actually talked about this. This is a first. So it's like the world has just gone, and there's just this. It's literally just I'm there. If I was to expand on it, it's like I'm here, and that's all I can see. It's just myself and that system, and it's like hyper focused. And I still find it quite overwhelming. I'm like, wow, this is whoa. But again, I'm not anxious. There's no kind of, it's not numb. It's not exciting. It's an experience that I can't really put into words. And then when I play, when that first song happens, I still don't know where I go during a set. I still don't know, and I couldn't really put it into words. But it's an out of body experience, I think, is the only way I could describe it.
I know.
It's hard to put into words just where you go when you're doing it. When you're performing, and I'm sure. I think whatever part of you is the soul, I think takes over.
Yes.
If I can only put it into any context, whatever part of you is truly connected with what you so love doing, that's what takes over. Yeah. And I believe that's the true self. That's the moment of presence. Because I've had people say to me, they said, you look like you belong there. And I've always felt a bit awkward when people said that to me.
Really? Okay.
Because I've never questioned what I do. I love what I do. But it's that fine line between arrogance and confidence. And I've always been very careful of traipsing over those two, because I love what I do. And I've always been a bit like, oh, I don't know if I'm, but, other people's opinions are their opinions. And, I respect your opinion. Thank you. But I've then had to sit with that and think, well, I wonder what they mean by that. So when I've then sat and overthinked, because that's what I do, great at that, should have an A star for that. I sat, what do they actually mean by that? What are we trying to get out of this? And then I've gone around in circles with it. And then I've had to come back to some kind of answer. And I believe that that's seated within the soul.
Yes.
And I am certain that is, because I saw someone, I can't remember which DJ it was who said it, but he was talking about that moment, preluding going on to play his set. And it was cognizant of what I've just said to you. There was a similarity, but it wasn't, it was very closely linked. It was almost like, well, he said that he goes into this sort of place but he couldn't really put into words. So I read what he'd written, and I was like, this again is the same thing I can't really get my head around, is I don't know where my head goes, either before, during the set, and even after for a while. It's kind of it's like an ascension almost.
Just taking a quick break from this incredible chat. If you are enjoying my podcast, please hit the subscribe button. It only takes a second and has a huge impact on the show. I really, really believe this is a great platform for the performing arts. And the more people I can reach, the more positive changes can be made. Thank you all so much. All right, let's get back to it. When you were talking about it, I had a visual. I mean, you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh.
Please, no,
but
go
I had a similar experience on Tuesday when I was recording my Ask Me Anything podcast, and this whole sense of belonging somewhere. And I felt like the volume of the other person was turned down slightly, and that I was almost in slow motion. I was so present that I could finally pick the words that I was about to say. I mean, obviously this is where I belong. And it was the first time where I really, really felt that. A visual understanding of that for some people might be, and I saw, is it Spider-Man? Don't know. But when he was so in the present that he was able to just dodge punches coming his way, because he was just like, I am so in the zone of where I am. I truly believe in what I am, and that everything else just slowed down and had control over it.
Thing, like Neo with the whole Matrix
is that
flying.
Oh, that sort of thing as well. Yeah, that sort of, I know who I am, I believe in who I am, and it sort of works around you. I mean, if that helps anyone to understand it, but that was really what I saw when you were telling me that.
But I think that's what I would encourage people to aspire to, is to really understand who you are.
Yeah.
Part of my journey is and has been trying to understand who I am. I would certainly say that I think it's important, and I would encourage people to really understand who they are. And I've been very fortunate and consistently grateful about the fact that I've found a supporting medium in terms of music to help me do that, because it's allowed me to accept more realities about myself, to be more self-considerate, self-forgiving. And I think there's true value to be, achieved in life by really getting to grips with who you are. And that's a terrifying experience. It's a terrifying thing. So I wholly respect anyone who undertakes it, because it's very difficult.
Oh yeah.
And you have to really sit there and come to terms with some realities that are very difficult.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think that there was an expression that I heard once, was, what comes easy won't last, and what lasts won't come easy.
I love that.
And this is something I've had to really live with, because I'm like, this is going to take time. With what you're trying to attain to, this is not going to happen overnight. You have to be patient. You have to be cognizant of who you are, where you are. And the first thing, the foundational learning, is to understand who you are firstly.
Yeah.
And you have to look at yourself, in a psychologically naked perspective. You have to realize who you are. You have to understand all your scars. You have to look at them boldly in the eye and accept who you are. But then that's when you then grow from it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
yes.
you'll you'll finally get that understanding, or not I don't think we truly understand who you are.
Or acceptance, just acceptance, you know.
Yeah. You'll find something to then move onwards. However, it doesn't mean that you won't have to go back and revisit that from the beginning again. You'll still have to go back. You'll still have to restart again and go again, because it's a foundational learning. You're going to learn a bit, you're going to learn the next bit, you have to go back a little bit, but that's going to strengthen you from the bottom. Then you're going to keep going up.
Yeah, because we're surrounded by our own defenses, aren't we? And then when they start to come down, we're faced with reality, and some of them will go, "Oh, don't like that," and it starts to go back up. And you are kind of doing a bit of a dance with finding who you are, but the back of
isn't it? Yeah,
a tango, a cha-cha-cha, you know, but you will get there in the end.
I don't know how to tango, by the way. I don't know if that was one of the moves. That might be one of my dance moves. I don't know. But
I love it. When we were talking in a different conversation, we were discussing, you know, the memory that can come with music. We talked about it a bit early on, but I've got a note here on the real, like how can I put into words? Someone who has, let me look at this. So the Notebook, the movie, The Notebook, where there is a lady who, she has dementia or Alzheimer's, and she doesn't remember her husband or her kids or anything like that. And then just before she comes back, or as she's coming back, she sits at the piano without the music score and plays the music. A piece of music that she connected so deeply, like going back to what we said, but so deeply that it brought her back. I just think that really, really defines the power of music.
Absolutely. And there was I remember when we talked about this, there was that reel I mentioned to you, didn't I? There was the lady who was, the prologue came up that she was very much end stage dementia. She still had her mobility, she could still walk, but very much so, you know, the disease had took hold. And, you know, they placed her at the piano. And I've not seen this film, but I'd seen this reel. And it was just very much by chance. This came up on, as it does on the feed, you know, things just get thrown at you, like, oh, I'm going to watch this. And it was obviously it was about music, so I thought this could be interesting. And I'm so grateful I saw that, because I'm still haunted by how her face changed, because it was like life came back to her. The second that chord was struck on the piano. And that's fascinating.
Isn't it?
And it's I can only put it into the terms of haunting, because, you know, someone's on a crashed cart and they're dying, you know, and electricity's run through their chest and they come back to life. And it's like, you know, they're back in the room again. And it was exactly the sort of it was very similar to almost like she'd just been brought back to life. And it does. But again, this is why I've found it a wholly expansive experience to talk about this, because there is such value in music that I don't think we've really tapped into it in terms of, you know, the application of it. I think that it is in usage, but I still maintain that there's so much more that can be done with it. And I think on a societal level, the base of us still being together, you know, coming together to go raving and to, you know, have a great time and enjoy music together. And, you know, the many platforms are out there that are cascading music to the masses, which is phenomenal. I would dare say that music is one of the most important medicines we still have at our disposal. You know, I'm not saying it's a cure-all, but I dare say it's got a lot of value and an immense depth that can offer to people, because we're such individual creatures that different styles of music will talk to different, you know, characters. You know, I'm very grateful that I enjoy a wide range of music, you know, Prodigy, Linkin Park, Metallica, you know, the list goes on. You know, I've got many artists that I love in the scene, and I think the world of, I admire their creative skills and the strength of the deliverance that they provide, because these are beautiful, euphoric tracks that talk to people. But I equally love the dark depths of techno. I like the happiness of house, you know, the kind of grooviness and the coolness of tech house. Everything has a place in society, and it has a place. Oh, yeah. It's like they all say, like, there's someone for everyone, isn't there? I still think there's a song for everyone.
I like
but
that.
there was something I wanted to bring up in this conversation today, and it was about the fact I don't really think I've met anyone, and this is, I will say nothing's perfect, but I sat the other night in my own thoughts, as I do, and overthinking, as I do, daily thing. And there was one thing that really sort of shocked me in my head, and I was like, I don't think I've ever met anyone who said they hated music. I don't think I've met one person in all my time on this earth that said to me, I hate music. Because we've all posed the question, oh, what do you like? Oh, I just like everything. You know, if you're more sort of specific about what you like, oh, I like rock music, I like, hip hop, I like R&B. Everyone's got a taste. But I don't think, unless the universe has just pushed them all away from me because they might upset me, I'll be fine. I'm like, okay, it's not your bag, that's fine, I'm cool with that. It's my bag, but it's not yours, that's fine. Everyone's got their interest.
Yeah.
But I sat the other night, I thought, I don't think I've ever met anyone who's ever said, I hate music, or I can't stand it.
No, me neither. Never.
And I honestly would love to know how many people have met someone who said they hate music, because I don't think there's many people. Because I think that, again, on a very humanistic level, I think we've all been, from our very births, our conditioning, that it's just been part of our lives. We've been surrounded by it. But again, even when you say about surrounded by sound, like we're sat in a quiet room here, we're talking, the only thing that's resonating is our voices. But there's still sound around us. There's still air, there's still movement, there's still sound going on. And I suppose, people say, what really shocks you and fascinates you in life? And I would say that just sound fascinates me. And that's why I think I couldn't ever let it go. Not sound, because obviously it'll still be there, but music, in terms of, with what I do in the industry.
Yeah. And if you think that we're energy and we kind of strive on the vibrations, so no wonder music is such a massive part of our lives. I mean, I was really trying to think of someone to go, actually, I know someone. No, there's no one in my whole life so far that has said, I hate music or I don't like music. Everyone's always found their song.
It was just something that came to me the night, and as I said, I thought I really want to talk about it, because I just wonder if anyone's ever had that experience, because I've not. I've lived a great life and I've had some brilliant experiences, and I'm looking forward to more. But I don't think of all the experiences I've had, I've ever met anyone who said, "Yeah, I don't like it. I can't stand this stuff."
And even if someone was to say, "Oh, actually, music isn't my thing," commenting on the show notes or something, but I would maybe even put in a counter argue that every time you go to the cinema or you go and watch a movie, what is it that brings that movie to life?
Oh, wow.
It's music.
Yeah.
A horror movie without the music isn't so scary, which I do sometimes if it really is scary. Yeah. But then as soon as you add the music back in, it takes you on that journey. When it's sad, you've got that music to really bring that emotion out in you. Again, connecting the film to you. It's so powerful.
I mean, you look at like a director like Ridley Scott. I mean, he's Ridley Scott. I mean, one of the greatest scores I think that is in existence is from the film Gladiator.
Yes.
Now We're Free. I mean, even if you just connect with that song, wonderful. But as you go through, like you were just saying there, it tells the story along with the story. Like, there are these positions of sound that come through, and these atmospheric pieces, like, air just flowing through the sand and through the rustling of the I presume it's a cornfield he walks through. Is
I think so. Yeah.
But
it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Just this soundscape. And that in itself is painting a visual picture anyway, because isn't it funny when people turn down the radio to see something? When you're in the car, and I've got to turn this down. You're driving, you're looking, you're not at it. That's how strange that is, that we do those things. It's just one of those weird connections, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do one of those sort of, why do we do that sort of thing? It's like, it's not going to make any difference to my eyesight.
No.
But it's almost like they're so interlinked.
It's so almost overpowering though, isn't it? And I mean, not meaning to be morbid, but the last thing to go is our hearing.
Yes.
And so I think it really, really is it. I mean, if I'm listening to a piece of music, it takes away from everything else. I mean, I can drive and listen to music, but I am focusing a little more on the music. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. But it's so powerful. And going back to the people not really resonating with music and me struggling to find someone. I'm even thinking, you know, even if you were to watch Jaws, that sound utter fear, and you take it there, you know, all that sort of thing.
You're drawing the emotion, isn't it? And that's what is so exciting about the creative process, is that you're striving for an intentional response. You want an emotional response. And again, that's where I come back to, you know, the therapeutic application of it, is that, you know, if we are trying to help someone through a trauma, you're trying to draw out that emotional response because you want them to face that in the most constructive way possible, of course. You know, I think, you know, dealing with anything traumatic is, you know, trying to process it. You deal with the trauma at the time, but it's the after effects. And I think that's where the music has the most, you know, applications, because you create an emotional platform to work from and to explore.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that I've found in moments of need, that I've been able to select the music to listen to. So, you know, talking about what we mentioned before the show was about other artists outside the trancing that I've really resonated with. So, you know, and in terms of times when I've been struggling, you know, tracks that I've turned to. So one of the tracks that I keep coming back to when I'm in a really difficult place was, I mean, the title's self-evident. It's called Stay Positive by Mike Skin in the Streets. Now, when you listen to that song, the content of it, you would consider it to be a wholly depressing song. It's a very deep, dark bass line. It's very soft piano keying, and it's just got this hum of atmosphere through it as well too. And it's just got this sort of marching effect to it. But equally, if you listen to it in the way which I've connected with it, it's a song. It's truly a song of positivity.
Right.
It's truly a song of hope. So when I'm in moments of, you know, I can't see a way forward, I've always found myself just tapping onto YouTube and going for a drive and putting this on in a very, you know, very private moments. And I've just found it. I listened to it a few times through, and then I'm coming out the other side of the storm, and it's almost like it refreshes perspective, because in this song he's saying to you that, look, you know, life will go as it's going to go, things will happen, but just remember that, you know, even if it does get bad, you know, there have still been good times, and there will still be other good times. But when you listen to it on initial perspective, you think this is just the most depressing thing ever, but you have to really listen to it. You have to explore it.
So I've not heard it before, but I'm going to listen to it after this.
But that's a good little gem as well, because if you get an album by someone, don't listen to the hype tracks, listen to the other ones on those albums, because, you know, you might find something in there that is, look, he's got a body of work that stems many, many years, and he's an incredible artist. And, you know, I've enjoyed many of the Streets' tracks, but that one, but we were talking earlier on about surface level connection and deep connection. It's a deeper connection. And, you know, it's like you say, how many friends have you got? They always say you can count the number of your true friends on your one hand. And it's kind of like that with music, I think. It's that, you know, there are those 5 that they're just something special. There's just something different about them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the exciting thing about music, is that it's a never-ending exploration. And I think that resonates with us as human beings, because we're still trying to work it all out. We're still trying to explore ourselves. We're trying to understand why this happened, why that happened. And again, it comes back to the, you know, to bring it full circle, is about, you know, music as a therapeutic platform and medium allows people to, you know, work through those things, you know, as a formative piece to work alongside themselves if they find it of value. Because I said, it's not going to work for everyone. You know, they might not connect with it on that level. But I think that, you know, in times of difficulty, I know that a lot of people, they do turn to music. You know, if I think back to that, you know, I just want to listen to some kind of sad songs, had a drink, and then I was fine. But it's there's a continuity with that. Like, you know, you said earlier on, well, I just sit home, have a couple of drinks, listen to some music, and I go to bed. You know, but I've heard so many people do that as well. It's like, you know, what do you do when you're sad? You listen to sad music. When you're happy, you listen to happy music. It's a complementary piece, and it serves us as human beings. Yeah,
sometimes I've actually been sad and listened to a happy piece of music. To create the emotion that I want, which is quite interesting. Or you can be in a really happy mood, a song gets you that you've heard in a not so good time, and it can take you the other way. You know, it's
but even euphoric tracks can take you that way. Even euphoric tracks can take you and supersede your emotional base. Like, they can take you even deeper. to a point where you are, and to a point where you are, you're breaking down, you're tearful, but it's a trade-off, because for every action there's an opposite and equal reaction, isn't there? So for the fact you're consuming this euphoric piece, if there's something in your past that's happened or a way you're feeling, it might so trigger an emotional response that is one you hadn't expected. Yeah. And again, I think that's the great thing with music. Sometimes you just roll the dice and they come up as they will. From an emotional perspective, it can, but the thing I've always found interesting about it is that you go and have a few drinks, you have one too many, you got a roaring great hangover. You consume too much, you feel a bit bloated. Oh, I shouldn't have eaten that much. I was wasted. Shouldn't have had the starters. Shouldn't have had the dessert. Shouldn't have had all three. But you come out of that and you're feeling rough. The difference with music, though, I've found personally, is that you can consume and consume and consume it. And generally speaking, I've not found it to take people to a place of uncomfortability. No. Because there's always an alternative. There's always something, a different approach you can take, like, this music's not working for me.
And then you change the track.
I should try something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
The same thing when you're performing. Sometimes the dance floor's not connecting with that. Okay, well, we need to change this up. We need to create more drive. We need to maybe bring more, that's working. So let's bring in something more euphoric. Let's find something maybe it's got a bit more oomph to it.
Yeah.
That's not a technical term, by the way. It's just,
oomph. It's in the dictionary. Yeah. The DJ dictionary. I mean, let's go on to your DJ, because your DJing, should I say, because we've spoken a lot about how music really does save us in many different ways. But I want to know, in your opinion, what the DJ industry is like for you, because everybody has a different journey, and I know that it is tough.
I'd wholly agree. It's tough. It's difficult. It's challenging. I think that you have to willingly accept that it's going to be difficult, and you have to persist. It would do me no justice if I didn't mention my father in this, because, he's taught me a lot over the years. He's not in the industry, but, one of the things he says, has said to me, time's gone by a long time ago, is, well, the easy thing to do is quit. Okay, Dad, fair enough. All right, okay. I hear you. Yeah. Reverse psychology.
Thanks, yeah. Always works.
And, but then equally, the harder thing to do is persist. But like I said earlier on in that statement, that phrase that I'd heard, I can't remember who said it, but, what comes easy won't last, and what lasts won't come easy. It requires sacrifice. There is a lot of value to being in the industry. And the fact is, I still maintain that for whatever is portrayed in the music industry by the media, there is still a lot of very good people. There are still a lot of very hungry and driven people who so desire to put out in the world what they perceive as their art. And in my mind, art is a shared piece. As yourself as a dancer, as myself as a DJ, there's an element of give and take. That person's come to see you, and you've come to perform for them. Yeah, there's an equilibrium of deliverance. There's a fair trade. It's a give and take, and I think that's a great balancing. It's a great medium. I think the thing I so love about what I do is that I get to meet different people. I get to understand different people. I get to work with different people. And I don't know of anything I've done in my life that has given me that avenue of opportunity. And I would say that persistence has been the key to what I'm doing.
Just keep going.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would wholly advise that to anyone. I think that if you truly want to move forward into something like this, and you are willing to understand, that it is going to require patience, stiff upper lippedness, if that's the way you say it, stiff upper lippedness. There is going to be, like late nights, there's going to be networking, there's going to be all manner of things, the same thing you do in any industry. when I first redeveloped as a solo artist about 2 or 3 years ago, I had a really interesting thing happen. So I heard a quote, and I don't know where I heard it from, but it was just sat there somewhere in a box in my head. And I hadn't thought about this one because, as I said, I think about everything. But this box had somehow got covered in dust and just left to the back of my head. It literally was an untouched thought for so many years. So I don't know where it came from. I don't know where I'd seen it. And it all comes back to true intention. The quote was a Vincent van Gogh quote. I'm hoping it's from Vincent van Gogh. I'm sure it was, unless someone's labelled it wrong. But the quote in itself is, what is done in love is done well. And again, as I said to you here, Candy, I don't remember where I heard it, but when I reformulated myself as a solo artist, it felt like the right thing to say at the time. I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to say or how I was going to express what I was going to become, but it just felt right at that time. And I said it, and a lot of people resonated with it. And I've always maintained and stuck with that quote. You know, you always have something you attach to, and for whatever reason it has. So I think that, you know, anyone who wants to get into this, you know, you've got to understand why you want to do this.
Yeah, it's a very valid thing to say, actually. I think people go, I really want to do it because I love music, but what is the core? You know, ask yourself the same question time and time again. What is the real reason that I want to do this? And if you connect with that real reason and bringing in that love, you will be successful.
But again, it comes back to connection, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
That is wholly what it's about. And I hear many of my peers and people I think a great deal of and love their music reference that in their tracks. You know, we're all connected. We are connected. It's about connection. It's all about connection. And I think that's a guiding principle in the music industry. You know, you're all in it together, you know, and I think that that's where I'm always an advocate for music, but also an advocate for a more cohesive society, more return to community values, more understanding.
Yeah.
Because again, the world will polarize you. It will drive you towards a more individualistic position in life. And I think we retain our tribal community.
Yeah. I mean, it's very important that we are individuals and we embrace that, but that we have that connectedness. But it is a connectedness to ourselves, because I think with the pressures of image and social media, you can become someone else's image. And that's a disconnect, isn't it? So it's, you know, the question, who am I? I mean, is that a question you can actually ever get to the bottom of, because you're always changing? Yeah. But, you know, to really sort of understand thyself, I think it's really, really powerful. So, you know, I don't want people to be confused. It's not like we all need to be connected to each other for our lives to be successful. It's like we need to be connected to ourselves. And then the more we feel that, the more successful we're going to be in lives, because we're going to be much, much happier with each parts of our journey, even if we are doing a bit of a dance to get there. But then when we are actually on the dance floor, you know, and we're connected and we're dancing, we are connected to ourselves and to each other.
I think I really, really respect that statement, because it's along the lines of something I'd heard. I think it's in the context of something Jordan Peterson said, and he said that, you know, the way to build a cohesive society and a strong society and a healthier society was that you get yourself in order, and you get your family in order, and then you take care of your community, and then it takes care of the world. And it does start from within, you know, because there's the Pareto principle: 5% change, you know, delivers a 20% return. So by you changing that 5% of yourself, that very small amount of you, the compound return is massive.
Yes.
And this is where I see and understand exactly what you said there, and I agree with it wholly, and I believe that's what he was saying. I'm sure that's what he's trying to say, was that, you know, you get yourself in order, and that's like you were saying, you return to the true self.
Yeah.
And I agree, yes. Do we ever really know ourselves? Like you just said, that I would agree with you. I don't think we ever do, because we're all emotional creatures. You know, we're all, you know, I think again the principle of spectrum is very prominent now in modern society, and I agree with it wholly. I think that, you know, we are starting to understand ourselves on another level, on a more spiritual level, and a more more individualistic level, but without the narcissistic side.
Yeah.
We're starting to get what we each are, and then we're trying to work with each other more so. So I think, to bring up what we talked about very briefly in the lead up to this meeting was about the fact that society, I do believe that we are on the cusp of a spiritual renaissance. I do think that, doing the same thing over and over and expecting it all to change is never going to work. It's insanity. And I do think that, through experimentation, through exploration, through looking at things more outwardly, that I do think that society is going to go in a different direction to where it's currently going, because potentially it plays into the premise of good and evil. Maybe that, good will overcome evil. We don't know what's necessarily good and evil at times, at the best of times, because sometimes it's very difficult to judge. The lines, as I say, as you get older, the villains become the heroes become the villains. And you're sat there going, all right, well, work this one out now. That's another thing to overthink about next week. Great. Another topic for my night alone. Brilliant. So you're like, okay, well, let's think about this one. So, but the point I'm making is that it's by people individually bettering themselves and forming themselves into the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Being cognizant of difficult, traits and the different ways in which people can be, selfish and narcissistic and all these sorts of things. They are character traits. Everyone is different.
Yeah.
It's all part of the fabric of existence. I think that people are going to look at the world now as it is and think, we need to do something different. I think that is where things are going. But again, I still maintain that music has got to be a big part of that. And I still believe it has a huge part to play in that.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Has music or the industry ever affected your well-being?
I would say anything that you want to do that is of meaning to you personally is going to always inadvertently affect you. We each have our crosses to bear, and you must only but do the best you can. Self-awareness plays a huge key in this, because it retains your stability. Without that, yes, it will affect you. You have to be cognizant of the fact that you are sacrificing a great deal of of your life to attain to something greater than what you believe is greater than yourself. The very fact that I have the opportunity to do what I do, I'm grateful of every day. It may hurt me, it may disappoint me, it may sadden me, it may elate me, it may make me feel euphoric, but equally it's what I've chosen to do. And it's very difficult to put into context if it has affected my well-being, because I still remember the boy sat in maths at the back of the class, sorry mum and dad, reading through my mate's DJ mag. I still remember this. I was about 11 years old. Because for anyone entertaining this and what you want to do in life, something that means something to you, something that you find is like, that means something to me, this is worth something, this is a value to me, this will feed my soul. I still remember being in that classroom and he'd bring in this magazine and we sit there, and the first thing I do is look at the decks. First thing at the back of the magazine, first thing I did was look at them. And that, I think, was the very moment. I don't know why, but just for whatever reason, I'd set an intention. I was 11 years old. And I fought, begged and pleaded for those decks. And mum and dad wouldn't buy them for me. Like, no, you're not having them. No, it's just too much money. Because 11 to 14-year-olds, they love everything for 2 weeks. And then like, I don't want this anymore. I'm bored. Can I do something else now? Like, yeah, all right. What do you want now? So they would not. So, I'm wholly grateful they didn't, because, it made me self-sufficient in the degree that when I moved to the Wiltshire area when I was about 16, the first thing I did was buy a set of decks. Argos Home Mix, the greatest, not the greatest decks ever made. Plastic Fantastic, they were just, they were a piece of work to work with. But I had friends over, I put parties on. And that was when I was 17. When things get difficult, you know, you have to remember why you started. Anything, like I said, anything that you want to do in this world that is of great value to you, and if you believe is in service to others of great value. As I said, I don't do what I do wholly for myself. As I said, I believe in the power of music, and I've seen the good it does for people, and I see it continue to do good for people. And I still would advocate for it to be even more so used in therapeutic applications.
Mm.
But when you are doing something of that size, yes, it will impact you. But you only have to make the decision whether or not to continue or to stop. It's only you to carry that, and no one will make the decision for you. And whenever I've gone to counsel for help from family or from friends, you know, it's been very much, no one said to me, right, you need to stop. It's that you've had enough. Like, no one's ever done that, because they won't do that. No one will do that for you. You have to make the decision yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful question. I respect you for asking it. To be able to answer it as a yes or no, I possibly couldn't in this situation. I don't think I could honestly give you an answer, because, you know, we are who we are, and I know what I'm doing. It feeds me. And I believe that it feeds others, and I certainly hope it does. But in terms of its effect on my well-being, no, I couldn't answer that question. Not specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you want something so much, and it's funny you said that. I was 11 when I decided I wanted to be a dancer.
Oh,
it's really, really funny that you said that. So it sort of took me, so I wasn't reading through a magazine, but I was stretching my feet under the table. And when you want something from that young, and music is involved, I know mine was dancing, but music was still involved, you are connecting to it in such a deep level. But there's so much vulnerability there. And I think that is kind of what I think of when I think of my well-being with, and my relationship with dance and with music is, you know, I was in love with it, but it made me feel vulnerable. And so I guess it was like, I was good some days and not so good other days, but I kept, and like you very, very brilliantly said, you know, that it's what feeds your soul. And it didn't matter whether I was having the good days or the bad days, it was feeding me. And I just had to keep going until, obviously, you know, we know I had to stop eventually. I think I was probably done. I was tired, you know, working so hard for so many years, and you do get tired. But I think, yeah, it is a hard question to answer. And I'm sorry for throwing it at you. But I think that it's very important that people understand that, you know, you don't just decide you want to do something and you do it and you're successful, but there is so much behind the scenes. And it's not just about preparing your tracks or creating your tracks and all of that. There's even more behind that of the, how am I doing?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But you said, you were saying about, I find that quite an interesting statement you made. You said you were preparing, you know, mentally about, you know, stretching your feet to get the poise in the position. I'm not going to pirouette again. I did that once. That's enough,
to spin the chair.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not. No. There are lines I have to hold to. But no, I mean, the thing you said about you were preparing yourself. Do you remember what the precursor to that was? Because that's something that I'm still trying to work out. Like I said, I was sat in maths reading through the book, and there was these. It wasn't even about the articles at that point. Later on, I started to read the articles, but initially it was about, that was the first thing to do, was get the decks. That was the first part of the journey, was I had to get these to again move forward. You were preparing from a physical perspective, but do you remember what precursed you into that?
Yeah, I remember exactly, and it's really interesting. I guess it says a lot about how I was back in those days, but I was much more musical theatre. I was much, much, much better at it. And that's the way I was going. I was already sort of being gently pushed in that direction. And I loved it. Just not so much the singing element, but the dancing bit, I just absolutely loved it. But when I saw a friend of mine auditioned for the Royal Ballet School when she was 11. She got in, and I was like, oh, I want to go. And that was it. I mean, obviously there was more to it, but I was like, oh, I want to, maybe I should give this a go. But my auntie was principal ballerina of the Royal Ballet, Queen Mother's favorite ballerina. So ballet was in my life quite heavily. My mum and my auntie danced. My dad even danced. He did acting and tap dancing. So it was a very musical dancing background. So it was all there as the baseline, the foundation. But the trigger was, I want what that other person has.
That's wholly honest, and I appreciate. No, because I honestly, it's something that because I in retrospect, I look upon my upbringing, and we talked about before the show about the first 7 years of a child's life is show me that, and you'll see the man.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking back to when I was younger about what was the lineage of it, what was leading points up to that happening. And I could never really work that out because I didn't come from a family that were musically talented. I used to be, I think the only thing I can only got one little inkling was I had a friend called George, and he lived across the road, and his dad had a music studio in his house.
Right.
And he did the music for Casualty. Like,
no
it's
way.
a bit of a claim to fame here.
Oh, wow.
I knew that guy. But that's I'm not name dropping. I can't. It was so many years ago, Candy. I can't remember his name. But he did the music for Casualty, and he had this auspicious studio in his room. Like, if you think Deadmau5, it wasn't quite Deadmau5 studio, but it was beautiful. I can't even remember it fully, but I've got this vision of blurry black bits in amongst the pine, and it was a gorgeous studio. This was when I was a kid. I was probably I don't know how old I was, but yeah, I only ever went in there once or twice, and I don't know, it must have just planted something.
It would have done.
It's terrifying, isn't it? How just one little thing, actually terrifying.
It's exciting.
It's exciting. It's probably better actually. I don't know why I said that word, but yeah, it's definitely exciting to see how that changes you and how that impacts you and just influences.
Yeah. I
found that fascinating because that's why I thought I'd ask the question, because I try to think back what brought me to that point of being so driving. And it was the intention and the drive and intensity behind my desire to do this.
Yeah.
And I've not found that in any other arena of my life. I work hard, and I've always worked hard, and I've got what I've been told is a good work ethic, but the music side of things just nips the bud. It's just this extra edge. And I don't know what it was, but I was trying to fathom, and you always try and rationalize and try to think, well, it's because I overthink, probably my bad trait.
You are a deep thinker, but I think it's good. I mean, there's so many people that probably don't look back, that they're just, this is where I'm at, and they ride the waves. But I think there is a lot in the past and what has triggered you, positively and negatively, what has brought you to your place of presence today. Yeah, and so, I mean, I'm a deep thinker. I think it's probably why I'm well equipped to do this and studying. It's because I think about things a lot, and I go back and reassess things from a different perspective with my new lens as you go throughout life. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Where do you draw inspiration in terms of the development of your tracks?
So in terms of drawing inspiration, I would say a lot of it comes from seeing the work of others. I spend a great deal of time, digging through the depths of all the platforms you can buy music from, and that's a really exciting opportunity because you do draw from others. I love what they've done there. I really, really, am really digging that. That's a great sound. I'd love to be able to, emulate that. And, and ultimately, there's so many different platforms now where you can draw music from, and also not just draw even music from, but samples. Yeah. So a huge part of the history of music is based in sampling. And, that was always quite an interesting thing to learn about the history of. So, I mean, I read a book called Last Night, A DJ Saved My Life. And that was really interesting because it took you through the history of music and also about took you through like the whole tape era and vinyl eras, and the New York apartment parties, and
Wow.
it's fascinating. Like Detroit techno, and it was a really fascinating deep dive. And again, even though that's written text, you still draw some inspiration from that, and then you go off and listen to their music, and you're like, oh, I really like what they did there, and that's so cool. And I'd love that sort of energy in a track. I wonder if I could bring that into. I mean, their sort of music would have been a lot slower BPM, but by comparison, there's elements that they create. You're like, I would love to bring that into something that I'm working on. I'd love to see if I can bring something like that in there. And then equally, you hear these tracks that have been mastered in a certain way, and there's a cleanliness to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, God, I would so love to get that element of cleanliness onto that part of the track. And then, of course, you apply that to the process. The great thing, as I said, with different platforms is that, yes, you can purchase full tracks, or you can purchase sounds. You can buy samples. I mean, you can pick up ARPs, pads, synths, kicks, basses. You've got a whole harvest at your disposal of music, and it's like going to the grocers. You've just got all the fruit in the world, and you're just picking up what you like. And that's the same thing with DJing. You've got this whole option, list of options, countless worlds worth of music, and you just pick and select the cuts that you like. And what's then fun to do with it is then to really change those samples and sounds and make them something different. And that really spurs the creative juices. Much like when you'd have been dancing, you'd have moved in a certain way and gone, oh, I quite like that, and I'm going to move in a different way and move into this next position in a different way. And then absolutely, what you then find is that you'll work with one sample or one sound, and you'll adjust it, you'll change it, you'll add something to it, and then some treatment. And then what you'll then do is you'll then find yourself then in your headspace going, oh, actually, I could add this next thing to it. And it's this sort of forward momentum. And it's fascinating because you can feel that happen in your head. You're sat there with this song, and you've got this 8-bar loop going, and it's just going over and going over and going over. You've got the kick and the bass, and the mid bass is right. You've got this rhythmic flow. And then all of a sudden you start just trying different things, different elements. And then all of a sudden you're going, yeah, I like this. And then you position another piece onto it. Then that said about call and response. So you get a sound, then it will respond with another sound.
Yeah.
And it then suddenly becomes from nothing something, and it's a really experimental process.
But adding lots and lots and lots of layers to it. It's very cool.
And then you get the fulfillment of a fuller track. With those extra layers, you're going to get that extra resonance, and again, it helps with the connection in the other person's ear, because there might be a part of it that they really connect with or resonate with, but maybe not so many others. So to a certain degree, having a good number of layers is fantastic, because it bolsters the track. Doesn't necessarily guarantee the other person's connect with it, because again, it's semantics and opinion. Music is a very individualistic thing. But what I love is, like I was saying to you earlier on in our conversation here, was about really getting into the psyche of people. So you have different cascading sounds, and it really it almost breaks down the barriers that people have. It allows you to go past that protective block and really connect with their psyche on a deeper level. And I think that's fascinating.
Yes.
It's so exciting, because again, like you were saying earlier on about you're in that moment. That's what I want to draw out of people. That's what I want people to do, is just connect.
Just one more question for you. So what advice would you give to music lovers?
I would say listen to different styles of music. I would say don't sort of restrict your listening, as it were. As I've expanded in a musical sense, I've started to draw inspiration from different avenues. So, some of the music I would have never listened to years gone by, I'm now listening to, and I'm appreciating, which is a new thing for me, because I've listened to some styles of music. I thought, I am not touching that with a barge pole, but I've gone, just give it a try. It's like your vegetables. Just try some broccoli. Just give some carrots a go. Look, they're good for you. And equally, I've done that musically. So I would certainly say, explore different sounds.
Yeah.
Explore different styles. Don't write it off before you've tried things. In terms of, from a therapeutic perspective, I think find find music that really connects with you on an individual level, and don't be fearful because it's like a hardcore rock track because it talks to you on an emotional level, that it shouldn't be that track. If it talks to you emotionally, that's a track for you. There are people who love tracks that are 200, 300, 400 BPM, and that's like really, really potent stuff. But equally, it talks to them. It does something for their soul in a positive way.
Yeah.
So, I would certainly say be open to new music. I've found a great deal of value in terms of listening to different styles in terms of from an inspirational perspective. And again, it's exciting when you discover something new that you enjoy as well. I love the fact we brought up, thinking about our pasts, about, different sort of, bands and groups that we used to love and how it evokes that emotion. I think, yeah, absolutely revisit the things that you've connected with in the past. Hold on to those because they meant something to you at a certain part of your life. And they can bring up some very happy emotions. They can equally bring up some very sad ones. But I think that brings about the whole perspective for you as an individual listener, because that's about you. It's a personal connection. So I would certainly say that. And, if you're having a tough time, find songs that help you through that. If you find songs that make you feel great when you're feeling great, then again, apply it to that. I'd certainly say binaural beats are a wonderful thing for those who enjoy meditation. I know we talked about them earlier on. I think something I've found a lot of people say is with meditation, they find it difficult to sit in the silence of meditation.
Yeah.
So I think that, something that I've found was when I've tried to meditate in silence, using binaural beats has helped me to transition to that silent meditation. But there was something that this is not my advice, this is someone else's advice. Now, I for the life of me, I can't remember who said it, but listen to the sound of the world. And now what they meant by this is what I'm going to relay is I believe their context was that just sit and listen to nature. There's sound all around us, as we said about earlier on. And I do this quite a lot, just for a moment of the day, every so often, just have a moment where it's safe to do so. Obviously, don't do it in the middle of the drive, to work, and just close your eyes and listen to the sound of the car. Don't do that. Just do it safely and listen to something, listen to the sound of the world going on around you. And this was really cool. Like, I did this and I tried this a little while back, and I'm doing it all the time now. It's really fun. And I'll be at work and I'll sit there and I'll just be on a break. And I'll just close my eyes and I'll just listen to the sound around me. Might be birds sing, might be bird song. It might be just the air. It might be the trees rustling. But it brings you back to a very natural place.
Yes.
It's a very grounding thing. And I'd never entertained this. And you find a real sense of peace in that solitude. Look, you might hear sirens, you might hear doors closing, you might hear people, but it brings about a very human moment. And I found it to be wholly expansive in terms of a almost a meditative thing to do.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if you've done this yourself before,
Yes.
but
yeah,
I found it to be quite overwhelming. Actually, I was like, wow, this is different, but it's also quite inspiring because you then hear different sounds you'd have never thought you'd have heard. You're like, whoa, like this is going on. I didn't even think about this was going on.
Yeah.
So I would certainly say that's something to try.
It's like you're tuning into everything outwardly to then tune into inward.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing a new thing at the end of my podcast, and you are the first guinea pig. I want you to ask me a question. It can be based on what we talked about today, or it can be something else.
Thanks, Candy. Yeah, there's been no preparation. This is first time ever, folks. Yeah, okay.
I just think it's interesting to know what people would want to ask me.
I'd like to know what your driving force was behind the podcast and about what drove your desire to learn about people and to find out more about people and explore different topics.
So for the podcast, it was, I love podcasts. I think that you can learn a lot from a lot of people. And I find I love being connected to people through that. But I love people. And back when I was a dancer, I had no voice. I was afraid to speak. I had a lot of fear around conversation. In fact, this would have been I would rather the ground swallow me up than do something like this. However, I've got a lot more confidence now, but my drive is not about, I mean, what's funny is the more people I speak to, the more confidence it's giving me to speak to people. So it is helping me, but my drive is giving others a platform to speak because I did not have that. So that's my drive, and that's the same drive for wanting to be a counselor and everything that will bring, and all the external and internal things that can happen during your career. And I would love to just be a continuous support for the performing arts and beyond that.
That's wonderful.
Yay. I passed. Ross, you have been tremendous. I've loved it. I've got so much to think about as well. And you know what I'm going to do? As soon as you leave, I'm going to be putting on music. And then I'm going to go outside and lie on the grass and take in the external and just, really, I think a lot of people will get so much from this show. And it's been an absolute honor to have you here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candy.
A special, special thank you to you, Ross. You were such a fantastic person, and it was such a pleasure to chat with you. So much in this show to reflect upon. And I've been listening to all of my favorite tracks since this recording, and it's amazing how much joy it brings you. As I've spent my first year as a podcaster chatting with many people from the different artistic industries, I am making year 2 all about focusing on a few specific topics and going into depth, very similar to today's show. So if you're in the arts and you feel there's a big topic that you really want to share, or you're a listener and there's a topic you really want to hear about in more detail, then please do get in touch by emailing candy.presents.podcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for all your support. Bye for now.